he's come to me since I was a teenager, from time to time, sometimes more regularly than others. And one of my first really big experiences in Raja Yoga meditation is I was sitting there, and when I was doing it intensively, we might be doing 6 hours of meditation in a day on a regular basis. So life starts becoming a bit like a ongoing acid trip. So I was sitting there, and Archangel Metatron just appeared and kind of sat on me, and we merged fields. And I just had all of these spinning geometries all around me. And I didn't really understand much of what I was experiencing at that time in terms of the way it was recalibrating my field. But yeah, often I'll call on him, or have inspiration, or be pulled towards those Metatronic pathways for evolution.
Hey, beautiful soul, I'm Hayden Crawford, your host and soul guide here at the Dreamtime Academy, a cosmic mystery school for starseeds and truth seekers, just like you, who are looking at rediscovering your inner wisdom for a life of more freedom, joy, and purpose. Now, before we dive into today's episode, I'd like to invite you to subscribe to this channel and click the bell for future notifications so that you never miss one of my podcast episodes of either the Numerology Show or Cosmic Conversations, or indeed some of my transmissions, which will help to activate the next layer of your spiritual awakening. I'm the author of the Starseed Ascension Guide and the Cosmic Family Oracle cards, both designed to help you to reconnect to your higher self and remember who you truly are. If you want to dive deeper, we have an online membership portal called the Oversoul Codex Collective, where you can join a like-minded group of starseeds from all across the planet as you delve into courses in numerology, colour therapy, and cosmic consciousness as well. You can also support this channel by becoming a member, either as a Soul Spark or a Codex Keeper. If you're feeling the call to join us together in person, then we also host consciousness expanding retreats in Perth, where you can really start to experience this incredibly immersive work within community environment. Once again, your support really helps this channel to grow. So thank you for joining this team of galactic lightworkers from all across the planet, helping to expand consciousness and bring light into the darkness. So welcome to another enlightening episode of Cosmic Conversations, where we delve into the realms of consciousness, energy, and holistic healing. Today, we're honoured to have Dr. Stephen Booth, a distinguished acupuncture practitioner and master lightworker, to join us. With a rich background in meridian-based bodywork, Raja Yoga meditation, and Chinese internal martial arts, Stephen brings a unique fusion of ancient wisdom and modern esoteric practices. Stephen is renowned for his work in esoteric acupuncture, a system developed by Dr. Mikio Sankey, focusing on expanding consciousness and activating the light body. Through his private practice in Byron Bay and the 7 Stars Lightworker Academy training, he guides individuals on transformative journeys towards spiritual development and service. So in this episode, we're going to be exploring Stephen's integrative approach to healing, his insights into evolving the human energy system, and the transformative power of sacred geometry. So welcome, Stephen. It's absolute pleasure and an honor to have you on today's show.
Thank you for that beautiful introduction. It's an honor to be here and to share with your audience and with yourself. I'm excited.
Oh, thank you for saying that. That's lovely. Right. Okay. We'll get straight into it then, should we? So the journey to healing for you specifically, Stephen, can you share your personal journey into acupuncture and energy work, and what inspired you to pursue this path in the first
Yeah,
place?
sure. So it's been a little while. I come from a background of healers. My dad was a GP. He also had specializations in obstetrics and anesthesiology. He's an anesthetist. And my mum was in nursing and medical reception and those kinds of things. My grandfather on my mother's side was an acupuncturist, self-taught in the 80s. So it was, you know, not as popular then as it is now. Um, I've come from that background. And then I also had a bunch of spiritual experiences through my teen years, which so started attending church and those kinds of things, and went on a self-discovery mission and spiritual discovery mission. Um, and from that, I always thought I would do regular medicine and kind of follow in my father's footsteps, and didn't quite get in. So I went and did another 5 year degree in law and science because I was very interested in physics, especially the spiritual aspects of physics. So I was right into, say, Fritjof Capra's work on the Tao of physics and um, some other some other work. And during that time, I was overloading myself. Let's say I was working too many hours and doing too much, and injured my back at work, and went and got some acupuncture for it. Even though I'd had a lot of experience with acupuncture before, this was a really good reminder that, hey, there's something in this. And at that point, I couldn't really face the idea of doing another 5 years uh, at university and study that way. So I went and did a practical course, a 2 year diploma in shiatsu and oriental therapies, which is meridian-based body work. And that gave me a really good understanding of working with people and with bodies and with feeling and connection. And at the same time, I was also studying Tai Chi Chuan, Tai Chi and Qigong and Raja Yoga and pranic healing. So I was getting right into those healing modalities and self-development practices. And from there, I was finding that when I started working in practice, that people were having big experiences internally that I didn't have the skills or even people skills to manage or help them with. So I went and did a diploma in transpersonal counseling as well, um, which is really dealing with non-ordinary states of consciousness. So the things outside of the realm of regular 3D things. So people working with trauma or their internal experiences might have been quite complex, working with dream states and working with altered states and some of the psychedelic medicines as well, integration work around that, and helping people come to terms with and process and integrate their experiences that were um, beyond the ordinary. After that, I actually went back and did my 5 year degree in acupuncture finally. I got plenty of credits for the previous work that I'd done. But in that journey, I was quite, let's say, dissatisfied or disillusioned with the state of the Chinese medicine educational system. I went and did it because I wanted my piece of paper to show the government, hey, I'm approved as a practitioner. Um, but I found the content a little lacking at times and very heavy on science, which I was fine with. I have a scientific background, but it was an abstract form of acupuncture, like really from book learning and from theory, and very focused on evidence-based medicine, which is great, um, but quite limited. Looking at the science behind you stick a needle in someone and things happen to the body, you get inflammatory response and nervous system activation and things. But that really, for me as an energy worker already, was not satisfactory. But in that process of studying in my second year at uni, I came across the work of Mikio Sankey through a friend of mine who had been studying with him and brought him over to Australia, Alison Clark Daly, and got right into his work and found, this is the missing puzzle piece for me. This is why I'm on this path, and this is what I'm meant to be doing. So that encouraged me to finish my studies. And from there, I've been really focusing on that work and expanding upon it as well through my own experiences and discoveries and the other work that I've been doing with a charity foundation that I've helped set up, and now teaching through the Lightworker Academy. So that's kind of the journey to now in short. Is there any part of that you'd want me to zoom in on a little bit?
Oh, I mean, there's a lot to unpack there, isn't there,
Hmm.
Stephen?
Hmm.
Absolutely. I mean, it's amazing, first of all, like to hear about your personal journey and how much study, that you've done along the way, because so many people, study, like they do a course or they might do, like a couple of years in a degree or whatever. And then they sort of go, right, I've got everything that I need now. I'm out there in the world, but,
Hmm.
what's inspiring about you is that you kept on going. And of course, it's evolved so much over that time into what it is today. So I guess my next question to you is like with esoteric acupuncture, for those that are unfamiliar with it, how does esoteric acupuncture differ from traditional acupuncture processes?
Yeah, that's an amazing question. And yeah, first I'd like to say I just never stop learning. It's just one of the things that we can do as humans is keep learning and challenging our ideas and beliefs. As far as the difference between esoteric acupuncture and traditional acupuncture, a lot of it is around the intent. So with regular Chinese medicine, and I still practice this way quite a bit, we're focusing on patterns of disharmony in the body. So we're helping people move from an unwell state into a more well and whole state. That might be things like simply pain relief, working with symptomatic conditions. And for me, that's sometimes, again, I find it just not nourishing me in the way that I want to practice. If I'm doing what I'd really call it battlefield acupuncture, it's really often I find myself getting people back out into the world, continue with the bad habits that they've had before that got them to that position that led them to come and see me. And that's fine. And there's definitely a place for that type of work. But with esoteric acupuncture, we're really focused on the evolution of consciousness and the bigger picture, working on evolving humanity and also planetary evolution. And that's a much more interest and more nourishing to my soul and affirming for me as a practitioner. So the way in which we work is through expanding consciousness using sacred geometry and sacred geometry in the body. So generally, we work with triangles as the basic building block of sacred geometry forms because triangles contain resonant frequency. They will hold a structure. They're the basic building block of, say, the water molecules, the tetrahedral shape, which is an expansion of um, a triangle. They're the signature for a spiral. And um, we map triangles in sequence onto the body. So even in Chinese medicine, we see the body mind as a united field, and that each of the acupuncture points has a really deep um, cultural background, story related to them. So you can see each of the acupuncture points almost as having its own archetypal persona, and then mapping them together in a sequenced structure. You're telling a greater story about relationships between points, and then those connections make shapes which hold intention and frequency. And that helps remap the subconscious field. It helps with awakening some of the clairaudience, clairsentience, and the higher mind capacities and sensory abilities. And then after that, we also need to integrate those things because as you expand your awareness and your sensitivity, you've got more information to deal with. And that's what we talk about with, say, being in 5D. You've got a greater field of awareness, more dimension, more size of your input. So then we have to manage that and deal with it in a way that you can uh, cope and develop your coping capacity, which then leads to an expansion in value system generally. When you've got uh, more empathy, you naturally develop more compassion, those kinds of things. That's kind of the method that we use and the structure and the approach. So it's expanding awareness.
Fantastic. Well, that was really interesting to hear you explain that. Now, I noticed actually from some of the mapping that you've
Mhm.
done that there is the 13 within the triangle aspect. Is
Yeah.
that significant?
Yeah, so a number of the patterns have 13 points. We call them gateways in esoteric acupuncture rather than points is uh, not giving the importance. Calling them gateways says that they are like portals to higher information fields. We have like 22 point or 22 gateway patterns as well. But we have a number of 13 gateway patterns that when you connect them, they end up with a 22 signature of the pathways that connect them, which is the 22 cards of the major arcana, or the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. But the 13th structure has a few areas of significance with it. So 13 can be like the capstone on the pyramid, where we have the all-seeing eye. It can be the center of the like the jewel in the lotus of the 12-petaled lotus. And it's sometimes considered an unlucky number, but we would consider it actually a lucky number. And it's a power signature. It's a signature of um, control, but we're talking about not control from the external. We're talking about internal control and internal mastery, and the ability to have agency in our life and express ourselves in a way that's more in line with our true nature, and actually a method of discovering our true nature. So we have a 13-point pattern, which is discern the whisper, which is talking about listening to the heart with discernment, so that you can better align with those higher love frequencies, higher heart frequencies, and find them in your life and find your path, find your puzzle piece. And yes, a lot of that is around tuning into those heart frequencies. And we always use the heart as the guiding navigational point for all of the patterns and end up there. So when we work with the sequenced vectored patterns within the sacred geometry of esoteric acupuncture, we're starting from a place of heart frequency and also encoding each of the points in the sequence and the geometry that's formed with heart frequency. So it's a way of really finding that deep alignment with ourselves and our higher selves and our heart energy.
That's beautiful. I absolutely love that. Light body activation, then. So, can you explain the concept of light body activation and its significance in personal and planetary healing?
Sure, I can have a go. So the light body in general, I'd like to consider a integrated, complex, multidimensional, and integrated view of all of our bodies. So it includes and transcends the physical, but also the mental, emotional, astral, energetic body. So the same as with the planet, we have nodal points, or axes within the grid, where there are power centers. And we have that in, say, the collective mind of humanity as well. So you'll see concurrent ideas pop up across the planet at the same time or similar time. So someone will have an idea in one place, and then before too long, that idea is also evolved somewhere else. And where those ideas or concepts or energetic psychological structures overlap, we can find that there's a deeper element of truth, even though it might be looking at those same ideas from different perspectives. So within the light body, we also have those same ideas. So we've got the chakra system from the east, and we've got the meridian system, and esoteric acupuncture and light body activation also integrate the Western mystical traditions, so the Kabbalah, some of the other traditions from the Middle East and from Europe. Uh, that it's a big umbrella system, the way of looking at things that can be applied from many perspectives, and that's really where we're at in terms of humanity as well. We're at this place where we've never had this ability to communicate. We're bending space and time right now, speaking um, across the country, and then in the future, when people are watching this back, they'll be looking at something in the past in their present. So that's new. Our meshing of ideas, we're encountering different ways of being concurrent with our way. So we're bumping into other operating systems, other value systems, where people are living in a really different way with different ideas through multiculturalism and other things, where we have to learn as a species to deal with that. And of course, being in the heart and being in compassion is a really key element. But we've also got, all this new chemistry, new exposure to things that are disrupting us. So endocrine disruptors and pollution and cosmic radiation and a whole bunch of things that we're having to adapt to at really an unprecedented rate. So do that, working with the structures, keeping our integrity in ourselves, so that when we are encountering all of these ideas on social media or around the place and from our newsfeed and from our food and from everything, that we can really cope and manage with all of that and stay in our center and not be thrown off.
That's beautiful. I love that. So yeah, so sacred geometry, is a huge part in the new encoding patterns, isn't it?
Hmm. Hmm.
And I noticed that I think you've got the lotus behind you, is it? The
Yeah, this is actually the logo for the Lightwork Academy. It's
is
a
it?
it's a it's a nine-pointed lotus. I've got nine children, so that's part of my personal representation there.
Wow, nine
And
children.
yeah, and the number nine, of course, has its own significance.
Yeah.
Yeah, in terms of like Tesla's work or Rodin vortex coil mathematics, where it's the sort of the center of the yin yang symbol, the balance point. So I've included that as and it's also an evolutionary signature. We're coming to a time of great change, and it's like the last number before things really shift is a nine. So.
Yeah, it's a number that's very close to my heart. I'm being a life path nine, and
Mhm.
we've spoken in depth about the number nine actually, especially this year as well, because we're in a universal year nine on the numerology show, which is my other podcast. So it's interesting that you've got a nine pointed star there. I was looking at it and I was thinking, oh, is it the same that I've got on my
Oh
book?
well,
Because I've
yep.
got I've got
Well, in a way, it is because it's a toroidal field signature. So
yeah,
within Rodin vortex coil mathematics, they map all the numbers one through nine against each other and create a weighted triangle, which is a cross section of a torus. So if you've got the donut shape, the weighting of the energies towards the center, and what you've got on there, you could see that image as a toroidal field.
yeah,
So you've got the spiraling vortices moving out with a central point, and that is a signature for evolution, because it is a movement outwards. Things are born and expanded, and so when stars and galaxies are born, or even when we're born, we have that a few cells split and actually form the seed of life and flower of life, and form that same structure, that energetic balance. And yeah, as either moving outwards or imploding as well. So in terms of like a black hole. So we look at the way the gateways work like that as well, that they'll um, either spin inwards or spin outwards. Generally, in esoteric acupuncture, we tend to be gathering energy and harmonizing it rather than clearing it, but we do have clearing patterns as well. Yeah. And yeah, one interesting thing, more on a personal note, is when I sort of tuned in to the show today and to yourself, I got this clear message and guidance that your energy and your audience is more like a prism and more expansive and more colorful. And I see all the color work you've got behind you, and your tools that you're using. And so that's just, yeah, affirming.
yeah. It's a little confirmation there, isn't it?
Mm,
It's
mm.
interesting as well because originally, when I designed my book cover, I was tempted to put the traditional, flower of life, the tree of life,
Yes.
on there, but then it was very clear. No, it's got to be something that represents unity, as
Hmm.
opposed. And I think a lot of people are now becoming aware, they're moving away from the traditional, sort of Metatron's cube. So, but
Yep.
you've written about Metatron's cube as a new encoding pattern. How does this sacred geometry facilitate consciousness expansion?
Yeah. So I have a copy just here.
Oh, there you go.
So Metatron's cube has the signatures for all of the platonic solids within it, and also all of the Archimedean solids. So it has 3D signatures in there as well. And that particular pattern was transmitted to me through an experience I had where it came through as almost a flash of light, um, through the being Dwakul, who's an ascended master that's here of planetary service. And over the next week, I documented that pattern experience. And it's a pattern which is really for the time that we're in and for balancing the heart energy in particular. But it also creates like a really solid structure that helps digest the information that we're pulling in, and also balances ascension and descension, so we can be that real pillar of light between heaven and earth. um, as humans. So that's kind of how it works here, in terms of its function. Um, and it is the same kind of mapping of points that join up in a vectored sequence and form that overall geometric pattern. Yeah.
So do you also work with this Archangel Metatron? Do you?
Yeah. So he's come to me since I was a teenager, from time to time, sometimes more regularly than others. And one of my first really big experiences in Raja Yoga meditation is I was sitting there and, when I was doing it intensively, we might be doing 6 hours of meditation in a day on a regular basis. So life starts becoming a bit like a ongoing acid trip. So I was sitting there and Archangel Metatron just appeared and kind of sat on me and we merged fields. And I just had all of these spinning geometries all around me. And I didn't really understand much of what I was experiencing at that time in terms of the way it was recalibrating my field. But yeah, I'll call on him or have inspiration or be pulled towards those metatronic pathways for evolution. Yeah.
For those that don't know much about Archangel Metatron, could you just give it like a brief synopsis of who he is and what he represents?
Yeah. So from my point of view, and I've seen other points of view as well, which I won't speak to, but from my point of view, he's really a master of geometry and resonance. So, um, and the Metatron that I have a relationship with is of pure service. So he's here to assist personally in planetary evolution and to assist with that transmission of geometric encoding.
Mm.
So that's my personal relationship.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. No, that's awesome. It's interesting because within the system that I work with, the color mirrors,
Hmm.
Metatron is magenta in color,
Hmm.
and the magenta vibration is that bridge, energy between heaven and earth because it combines the red and the violet. So,
Hmm.
there is a very
That
um,
fits. Yeah.
yeah, the divine love, sort of
Yes.
energy and the soul that comes
Yeah.
through with
Yeah.
Metatron.
Very pure energy is my experience. So very pure and very intelligent as well. So it has its own inherent intelligence in um, the way the geometry is shared. It has geometry is kind of like the music that you hear with your eyes. Um, so it has a vibration. When you look upon or meditate on sacred geometric patterns or embed them in the body in the field by joining the acupuncture gateways, it shifts in a certain way your field and your experience and your inner world. So you get this internal change. And when we're working with those pure frequencies like love frequency, you get a lot of big shift, big heart shift. And when we're calling on this work to be of greater service than just us individually, you also get more help from those beings that wish to assist with that kind of work. So
Mm.
it really dials things up. Mm.
Oh, 100%. I find that as well with the work that we do when we run our retreats, we always work with different ascended masters
Mhm.
or archangels that come in with different rays of color. And
Mhm.
it's amazing how much support that they provide in, the work that we do. And, they're just simply always there. But I think as a culture, we've just forgotten that,
Yes.
how close they are to us and how they can assist if you ask. Um,
Yeah,
so
that's a beautiful way of putting it. Yeah.
yeah, it's amazing, that we're never alone. That's the biggest sort of, I think, revelation from many people is that realization that, a lot of the time, almost programmed to believe that you are an individual that's living a life experience and that you have to tread the path on your own. But then when you open up your cosmic consciousness, it
Mhm.
helps you to know that your team is guiding you every single step of the way. And it's an illusion that you just treading a singular path.
Absolutely. And you made the really key point there that all you have to do is ask. Just ask for help. And even the more clear you can be about who you're asking and why and what the purpose is helpful as well in my experience. But that veil between worlds seems to be changing dramatically as well at this time, through the astrological changes we're having and the astronomical changes we're having in our relationship with the solar field and the greater galactic field, that the currents are changing, and with that we all have to learn to realize, if we don't already, that there are spiritual beings around us all of the time to be there of assistance. Yeah, so there's this unseen world that we're trained to through culture, often just to filter out.
Mm.
And yeah, I did see a study that's come out just recently around the way the brain actually, that filter operates, so that we sit in this kind of default operating system where we're deliberately shut down in a way from childhood. So, with as all of my kids, but especially my younger ones, I really encourage their creativity and imagination and play, and validate their experiences if they're seeing or experiencing things that they can tell me about that are beyond my capacity to see, or beyond consensus reality that they might be able to talk with their teachers or other people about. Um, yeah, so I think it's important to value that inner experience as authentic.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear you talking about this, because what's coming to my mind is that, it's this the construct, it's almost like the program that we're
Mhm.
in, that really it's a simulation. Is
Yeah.
that where you've got to within your own studies, the recognition that we are living within a simulation?
Um, it's something I've definitely looked at, and I've had periods where I've really been deep on that. My current stance is that we're co-creating and we're participating in that we are each of us a unique signature of light, which is connected and unified with the greater whole, and that through we are running the simulation ourselves. We're having these experiences so that we can learn and even feed back that data into the greater whole. And so the experiences that we have, even if they're difficult or traumatic or challenging, that they are opportunities for learning, not just for ourselves, but for the collective. And that the wisdom that we have the opportunity to distill out of those challenges, we can then offer that as service through our own unique signature frequency. And a number of the esoteric acupuncture patterns actually tell that story. Um, at least that's how I interpret the story, is that they're often, some of the basic patterns have a pathway from the top of the head down to the ground, down the back usually, and then back up. And through that descending, we're gathering in information from the cosmic energy field, from the source field, bringing it through our own system as a way of um, adding to or entraining with higher values, high frequency field, offering that to the earth. And in that process, it's conducting through our own internal antenna, and then influencing our conduct, our actions, and the way we interact with the world. It's changing our attitudes around who we are and who we wish to be, and then that affects our relationships and all of those things. And offering it to the earth as service, so that we walk on this planet with respect and respect for each other, and with a vibration of we're here to make it a better place than it was when we came. And then it's got an ascending pathway as well. So most of these patterns then create an internal alignment where anything that's kind of not in harmony with that story kind of gets shaken out, and you get like a really strong sense of purpose, of mission, of what your spirit's path is. And then it will hit this point on the back of the throat chakra where it begins to radiate outwards, and you get that um, imprint, like you would imprint water, or um, so the somatic imprint of your own personal unique signature frequency of being through this descending, ascending story, which is a common one across the world, then is radiated outwards, um, as an active service as well. So you get this expression of your personal story out into the collective, so it influences the world around you or your sphere of influence at least, because things will change in your world as a result. And because of that, we're contributing to the collective evolution in the collective mind through the expression of those things that we've picked up along our personal journey. And through doing that, we are changing reality. At least our own internal reality is shifted, but people around us will also feel that. And by doing that, we are changing the coding of the simulation. So we call these new encoding patterns, and they can run like apps. You can refresh them, go over them. You can have them running in the background. You can walk around with it going. And by operating in that concept of your encoding your field and then running a process internally, that is influencing the simulation or influencing the great universal field.
I understand. Thanks for clarifying that.
Mm.
So are you talking about the crystalline water pattern? Is this what you're explaining here?
Um, well, crystalline water pattern actually does something a little different. It's a beautiful pattern. It's the one I'll be talking on at next year's Cosmic Consciousness Conference on the cruise out to Papua New Guinea. So it tells a slightly different story. It's got four main building blocks within it. The first is a as a upper center alignment, so it connects your head centers in a descending, so you bring energy down into your field, which you could see that as sort of feeding into the top of a toroidal field. Then we actually create a torus around the heart. So we use points that aren't directly heart points, but they're um, watery points. They're sanjiao points in Chinese medicine. So they relate to the fluids in the body. So they're mostly talking about the fascia structures, which are like a liquid crystal grid in the body containing all the information that's encoded into our collagen proteins and other proteins. That it's a living field of information of history and experiences and the way we are entrained and patterned to carry ourselves. So it creates a crisscross around the heart. So it's a like a big hug to the heart, which makes the heart feel really soft and safe and able to expand. And we run that crisscross as a hourglass kind of pattern, which is the signature for the center of a torus. So that hyperbole, the hole in the donut or the core of the apple. So it's spinning and expanding. And through that expansion, any tension or armoring or resistance that's there in the heart field is kind of blown out, or even any like holes in the auric field or distortions or debris, psychic debris that could be floating around, is all spun through that field. And we talk about crystalline waters. So crystalline structures are generally more fixed when waters are flowing and have memory. So we're bringing it into flux. Then we create a second toroidal field around the kidneys, which are more related to fear and contraction and adrenals and sort of base life force energy. And that torus is more compressed and implosive. And then we connect those three and pass them through a fourth field, which overlaps the lower torus. I'm getting a bit technical, but overlaps the lower torus in a vortex shape. Um, and that's a field of transmutation. So when that vortex spins, it gathers up all the debris from the higher fields, creates a suction through the upper field. So you get this descending, powerful, higher frequency information that's like it flushes through the field and passes everything through this point Ming Men, which is the second chakra on the lower back, and creates a combustion effect. So it sets it alight, like on fire, which liberates all of the like stuck fibrous old patterns, fear, those kinds of things, and frees up that energy so that you're not just carrying it around, exhausting yourself, but makes it fresh and bright and new, lifts it up in turn through each of the other centers, but particularly the heart field, and expands that torus further, increasing the flow within it, but also the number of light filaments um, and the field density in general. So you get a big heart expansion, which then, as it expands further, you encounter more muck, which would then bring down and transmute, and you get this sort of cycling effect. So it's a double torus pump. And then it ends up with some like affirming structures around the upper centers again, and a third eye activation, and a whole bunch of things. But yeah, that's an overview of the way the crystalline waters pattern functions. And if you can kind of imagine that, it creates a prism. It creates a prism, but it's differs from the other patterns because it's a restructuring pattern. It's not a this descending and ascending kind of grounding, earthing, and then bring up the energy. It doesn't actually ground. It doesn't connect to the earth. So it is like floating on the ocean. If you imagine like a vortex in your NutriBullet or your food processor, it's restructuring the energy. So it's restructuring your field. And when we do structure water, water has memory and we can imprint it with vibration, as I know you and your audience are well aware. We're not grounding the water. If you then ground the water, all of those structures then dissipate and it just goes back to ground rather than structured. So that's the way crystalline water structure. We're deliberately developing energetic structures rather than sort of flushing and moving and grounding the energy and then bringing it back up, as with the other earlier pattern I explained. Yeah.
Yeah. How does that then support individuals, during this transformative time that we're
Yep.
living through?
The key element there is moving out of fear. It really is. So fear's has its place in terms of survival and all of the rest. But if it becomes your default way you see the world, you're actually contributing to the fear frequency and creating more of it because, vision isn't just a passive inward movement. Its vision is creative as well. So if we start seeing the world through fear all of the time and what could go wrong and anxiety and all the rest, it's quite limiting, and it limits our changes our life conditions because we start then being unable to even consider other possibilities. So overcoming fear and moving more into love is really the key aspect. So the higher order of the crystalline waters pattern is really just that expanded, I guess carefree is one way to describe it. Just think of like floating on the crystalline water ocean, in bliss. There's nothing to worry about. Everything's in its right place, and that's an experience that people have if they're having, not all the time, but if they've like had a near death experience and come back, that they found this place of deep peace where all the nonsense that was going on for them, their values shift a lot. I've had one patient I just saw recently was in a car accident and had this near death experience and totally changed the way they saw the world and what was important to them. And so people that I've seen recovering from cancer, or people that have had some of those extreme ego death experiences through psychedelic medicines, especially the 5-MeO DMT, the bufo alvarius toad medicine. You get this complete breakdown of all your structures, and then they get rebuilt. And as a result of that, they then see the world quite a different way, and usually anchored in love. Yeah.
That's a beautiful example to give, of how transformative that they can be for people. But I guess,
Mm.
getting into the nitty-gritty of it all, how do you do it? I mean, are we talking about using needles, to create these
Mm.
these patterns? Yeah.
That's one way. And of course that's my training. But I'm using other tools now and really moving away from needles. I mean, the needles are helpful because you really know where the points are. If someone's sticking a pin in you, you know where that gateway is and you have the felt sensation. The needles are also useful as acting like antenna, so they really help with that transmission. So I consider the personal development of the practitioner really key. So the inner state that you're holding, the resonance while you're working with the needles in particular, but any of the patterns is of utmost importance, because that's going to impact the person you're working with. So having a lot of deep experience with the patterns is important. But in terms of the tools that I use, I don't really just use needles anymore. Sometimes I'll just use intention or meditation, particularly for myself and my personal practice. I use sometimes vibrational essences or I have used color therapy, but it's not something that I include much in my practice at the moment. My partner does in hers. Other vibrational imprints on water. So I know you had Freddie Silver on. So we use some of the crop circle imprints on water, along with frequencies like 528 hertz imprinted in the water, or sometimes essential oils. Uh, Also tuning forks that have different frequencies, like 528 hertz is the one that Mikio Sankey uses in his work. But we also have the great work from the Acutonics library, which is all of the planetary signatures as tuning forks. So they're really helpful as well. So if you're working with love and fear, you might use a Mars and Venus frequency or something like that to get that in the marriage with them. Um, I also really enjoy the crystal swords. Just happen to have a couple right here. So these are Tom Redder's crystal swords that are coming up on the footage. So this one has Anubis on it, and this has got Metatron's cube and a big pyrite sphere. And so I've got a big Mondo on it. Um, so yeah, crystalline. So I'll talk a little bit more about swords. I can't just show them. So the selenite on the blade, and that um, hardware, along with the other crystals, um, is also married with software that's in the handle. So in the handle, we have water from 40 different sacred sites around the world. We have water that's been imprinted with the star elixir. So from the Pegasus telescope array, they've shine light through it and imprinted the water with that. It's got all the esoteric acupuncture patterns are in there, shrunk down and wrapped around. There's the crystal matrix with hundreds of crystals in there that have been specifically chosen to be in there. Um, yeah, a whole bunch of software in the handle as well. So they really are quite magic tools. And they're great, if I'm working with someone that's afraid of needles or with children, they're useful. If I'm working with groups, I do work with groups a fair bit, but if I'm doing a pattern that's got 22 points and needling a group of 10 people or 40 people or something, it's just gets fiddly. So
Mm.
using the selenite swords are an amazing way of doing that. And you can also work with gateways that we can't put pins in that are in the field around us rather than on the body. So I'll work with say an octahedral shape or other Lightbody activation shapes like the Merkaba that will use gateways that are in the field, or say working with Soul Star and Earth Star chakra. Can't put a pin in them, but I can use the swords to access those gateways
I
to strengthen
understand.
the structures. And yeah,
Yeah, no, I understand completely. That's brilliant. So you're like a modern day wizard, really, aren't you, with the
I've
tools
been
that
called
you're
that.
using? Yeah, no, it's brilliant. It's very Merlin.
Mm.
It is. It just reminds me of the magic of Merlin. But you also delve into Antahkarana meditation and its role in building the rainbow bridge as well, don't you, to higher
Mm.
consciousness? Could you elaborate
Yeah,
on that and what that process is?
yeah, sure. So the Antahkarana, one way, there's a few ways of describing it. So it's like a sheath or a fabric of energy that connects the personal and the collective field, or to higher mind activation and high consciousness. Um, and it's something that I've been interested in because they'd talked about it in the pranic healing work, and we had amazing ways of measuring it. I came across it through Alice Bailey's work in the Theosophical Society, but there was no practical how-to technician's guide, follow these steps, use this recipe. But within the esoteric acupuncture template, there is. So I was fascinated with this. And it's actually um, a number of the patterns joined together. So within each of the patterns, there's kind of sections or little Lego blocks, building blocks that construct and build upon one another. So the Antakarana actually follows that story that I talked about before, the descending pathway. Then it's got an ascending pathway with this kind of this weaving of energies through the gateways, comes into the top of the head, down the front of the body, opens each of the pathways along, and then back up the back and has this huge expansion through the upper centers, and really charges up the energy inside the head, the Brahmarandra chakra, and then creates a polarity flip in there, which sort of inverts the energy and propels it upwards. So you get this flowering of the Guru chakra and some of the upper centers, and it's really the key practice for anyone that's wanting to go deeper with the esoteric acupuncture work, or if they are a practitioner on it of this work or wish to become one, is really to work with your own Antahkarana development. But it's an amazing tool, just if you're doing meditation or energy work or anything like that, because it just amps everything up so much. So before my Tai Chi practice, I'll work with my Antahkarana first, and it's something that sometimes I do a 40 or 1 hour, like 40-minute or 1 hour meditation, and really go through piece by piece. But now it's something I can just kind of turn the dial and it's active. But then if I've done that, it's encoded all of those frequencies, all of those stories together, so that I just shift into that mode very quickly, and then my practice is completely different to if I hadn't have done it beforehand. So I'll have greater connection with nature. If I'm doing my Tai Chi form outside, I'll really feel like I'm part of the wind and the trees and the birds, and I get that increased synchronicity and flow in life generally. It's an amazing tool.
Yeah.
And people's experience, if I've really worked on myself first and then they're coming to see me as a client, there's no comparison to if I haven't done those protocols beforehand.
Hmm. Okay, there you go. You're back.
I
So
disappeared. I'm sorry.
that's okay. So, all right. So your martial arts and your healing practices, I'm not even going to pronounce or attempt to pronounce
Nah.
those two words, Tahuan and Bakang.
I'll have a go for you. So there's Tai Chi Chuan, which is just Tai Chi, and Bagua which is kind of like a sister of Tai Chi. It's got a parallel development. So there's a third as well, which I don't really practice. I don't consider it, which is Xingyi Chuan. So Jingyi has all of the fists, Bagua has all of the palms, and Tai Chi has all of both. Um, so the Bagua means 8 trigrams. So they're talking about the 8 trigrams that form up the 64 hexagrams of the I Ching, which is of course another toroidal signature, and it's another map, another way of looking at the cartography of the energy body. And so they are martial arts. And so they work with self-defense and survival and all of those things, and the physical body. Um,
So how do they
but by
complement the acupuncture and the energy
mm,
work specifically?
yeah, so they're focused on internal development. So they're really focused on energy pathways and strengthening them as well. But from a martial point of view, where if we're in combat with one another, even in practice, that things get quite heightened. You're in stressful situations deliberately because you've chosen to, and you have to manage that and be internally calm at the same time. The Tai Chi, the way it works is through opening the meridians in a deliberate sequence as well. So it's got that knowledge of the acupuncture points is in there. All of the point striking within Tai Chi is aimed at acupuncture points. Um, so the knowledge is embedded in there. Um, the Bagua palms in particular really help differentiate energies. So we have like heaven palm and an earth palm, and they're the opposites. So they work along an axis of heaven and earth. And we can work with those same acitonal nodes in our field, connecting through the heavenly portal and the earthly portal. We have fire and water. So fire's out in front of us, water's behind. It's lower, which relates to the kidneys. So fire's that creative force and vision, like water's more memory. And that's a temporal axis as well, moving forward or backwards in time. We've got the axes of change to the sides of wind and thunder, so sudden and rapid change or navigation. So we're talking about like tilt or yaw in the energy field. And then, so that's 6 up, down, left, right, back, front, and back. Then we've got inwardness and outwardness as well. So that inwardness is the heart center, or in the Bagua palms, it's the mountain, which is kind of this shape. And we also have the everything on the outside, all the unknown, all the untapped potential, all the darkness, all the parts on the map that we haven't explored yet. And that would be lake or mountain. Oh, sorry, lake or clouds is the other one. It's the opposite of mountain, which is internal. And by creating map within those nodes within our field as well, we do get a light body activation where we've got a double pyramid shape, which can then, so you've got the pyramid connecting with the upper centers and then the lower, and then create a generative force between them as they spin and work with the toroidal field of the body. And can be useful like for energetic protection or shielding. If you want to like bubble up before you go into the shopping center or a difficult situation or something like that. It's a quick energetic alignment. If you've just had an experience that's thrown you off, really snap back to this is who I am, where I am, like an orientation. Um, I create the same shapes in my healing room before I um, invite in my helpers, my team, or even bring my client into the space. I have that structure permanently in my healing room, but I refresh it every time because the toroidal field it's acts like a drain through the bottom, so you can drain away anything that's the old energy or anything you want to disperse, and the spin through the drain itself. If you imagine the drain in your bathtub, that vortex that's created actually creates an organizational force that organizes all of the water in the bathtub around that vortex. And then we've got the upper center of that, which is the heavenly portal, which can create a downward stream of light as well. So you can call on a stream of access to whichever frequencies you wish to work with, or that you can just generally like invite in what's of the highest benefit. And I'll often get clearly, we're using this energy today, or those things intuitively come through just by creating the structures, because you're seeing you're telling the universe what you want by creating the structure that I want a
Mm,
container, I want it to do this, blah blah blah. Um, and the walls of the structure as well create that membrane where you've got like your own little bubble of space time that you're not going to be interfered with. And where I'm operating from here is we're quite lucky. I've only got the Wi-Fi on today because I brought my Starlink down, but generally we've got no EMF. We can't even get phone reception here, and I'm only 7 minutes from town. So yeah,
mm.
like I do try and really create quite a still, protected space to
Yeah,
work in.
it's a really good point. It's interesting because I did a couple of years ago. I did my Melchizedek initiations, and we used the pentagram
Hmm.
to be able to create, and the elemental platform to create sacred space. And
Hmm.
yeah, part of that training was like, oh, you only have to do it once. So my old healing room is at now our theater. So every time I
Yep.
go into the theater, like I can feel it in there. It's great. And yeah, so it just creates that sort of sanctuary of peace and protection, I guess, is the best way
Yes.
to put it, isn't it? And you never forget it's there. And so it's interesting that there's different techniques, to be able to do that. And it's amazing that that they are so varied. And I guess it's there's not one size fits all, is there?
No,
It's
that's right. Even the pentagram, it comes up in the Melchizedek work. It also comes up in some of the other Western traditions, like the Golden Dawn and Thelma. They'll use the greater and lesser banishing rituals of the pentagram and repeat them. And I know a practitioner of high magic that whenever he goes for a walk or into his room or whatever, he's evoking that pentagram field for the same kind of thing to balance the elements and bring about a more peace within himself and within the environment. And you're creating that kind of portal within that space that know that this is a sacred container.
it
Um,
gets a bit of a bad rap though, doesn't it? The pentagram.
yeah, so that's a lot of that's cultural and also the way it's delivered. So the pentagram can be inverted or up the more harmonic way. So it's whether spirit presides over matter or matter presides over spirit. It's really a perspective on where you are in your development as well. It's because there is a place in your own development where you need to put yourself first sometimes. You know, um, if I was only looking after everyone else around me and not taking care of myself, I couldn't actually look after everyone around me as well. So there is a place to um, be masterful over your environment, which is the um, that containing structure, but having that uh, balanced harmonic where things are guided by spirit is the kind of the key aspect. It's like you were saying, you have to develop your ego before you can kill it.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah,
I suppose anything can be used for the purposeful good and the purposeful bad. If we
absolutely.
look at,
It's just tools. Yeah.
yeah, it's just tools, it's reminiscent of, especially the pentagram, with the Freemasons, isn't it? And
Yeah.
how we know that there's good Freemasons and bad Freemasons. And I think that, it's all to do with the association, but it's mainly to do with intention, isn't it? And the way in which we use the symbols. So,
Yeah. Yeah. The other one that gets a bad rap is the cube. And that we use a lot of cubes in esoteric acupuncture, and you turn them on an angle and they look like a six surrounding one. Or but the cubes can be like a symbol of Saturn, which is related to Satan, and they can be a force of domination. But they're really containers. They're just containing. You put you in a box, put you in a cell, right? Um, but when we use them within esoteric acupuncture, we're actually talking about being in alignment with our own authority, being in alignment with our heart's true guidance and with the higher order information. So if you don't have structure, your life falls apart as well, right? So
mm,
we just can turn to mush. So there are times when we've just encountered new ideas or new concepts, or someone's just had a visionary type experience for the first time, and you want to help them put back together. You help them contain themselves within their own heart structures rather than being splattered out everywhere. And again, the key differentiation uh, is the information coming from the outside in or the inside out, and also are you being driven by fear or by love? So they're the key dynamics really at play.
yeah, which are the key components to duality, aren't they?
Yeah.
It's the black and the white. But you also integrate Taoism, don't you? And you're involved in the Integral Taoism movement. So how
Yes.
does this philosophy influence your approach to healing consciousness as well?
Yeah. So I guess I've looked for the biggest umbrella of understanding that can fit everything else in it. So for instance, I believe that Western medicine understanding of biology and everything can fit under the umbrella of Chinese medicine, but doing it the other way around and trying to make Chinese medicine conform to microbiology and things, it's a more difficult leap to make. So Taoism is really a universal understanding of observation of patterns of the microcosm and the macrocosm, and it flows naturally from the Tai Chi that I do and the way I practice medicine. The integral Taoism, we're talking about the integral theory and spiral dynamics theory as a map of the evolution of consciousness as well, that we move from different ways of being, say through our development personally, from childhood to adolescence to adulthood to being older and wiser, hopefully, and that humanity is doing the same thing. We kind of move from our tribal roots and through kind of this more warlike martial era, through the agricultural era and the military industrial era. And at this point, we're moving into a more networked way of being where we have greater communication. And then from that point, uh, if you follow the map, we're likely to make a, a giant leap forward in our consciousness. Partly driven by the changes that we're experiencing because of the previous six layers, but also driven by changes in life conditions, planetary conditions as well. So that work is all found on rd.org. So RD is the organization that I work with for that. We have got a podcast called Future Sense, futuresense.it, and RD is the RD network is rd.org, and we have a Substack and all that kind of thing. RD is the Agency for the Advanced Development of Integral Intelligence, and it's really the face of the Integral Taoism movement.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And interesting that you mentioned the Future Sense podcast because, I know you've appeared on that. And so what
Mhm.
topics did you explore there and how do they relate to your current work?
Yeah, so I've My work with RD and the Future Sense podcast has mostly been around Chinese medicine, the light body, and looking at um, the ways that we can practically take steps ourselves to be balanced through this time of change. But they talk about all sorts of things from um, new technologies to and encounters with extraterrestrials to, it's a wide range of things. But the movement, like the latest episodes and the trajectory we're on is really focusing on those planetary changes that are happening. And yeah, I think directing people to the latest episodes in Substack is a place to go for that. Yeah.
I love that. And I absolutely love the name of the Seven Stars Academy. It's brilliant because, it just automatically takes me to the Pleiades.
Yes.
So can you tell us a little bit about the Seven Stars Lightworker Training Academy and its
Yeah. So the name Seven Stars has sort of been in my branding and business name for 25 years. I first started as Seven Stars Shiatsu, and it was because I had a encounter with a Palladian group um, around the age 19, where I felt surrounded by beings of light that were loving and beautiful and supportive and really held me through a time of great challenge and chaos in my own life where I was quite stressed. And their love and support really centered me. And then I looked a little bit more into the Pleiades star system and the star beings that come from there. And then have uh, out at Uluru been exposed through some of the elders out there to the transmissions that they've had, or also down at Coffs Harbour at the first Cosmic Consciousness conference that I went to, we had stories told from the local Aboriginal people about the Seven Sisters, and so I've had this relationship with it. But it's also the seven chakra centers and this number seven as well. Keeps coming up as being important. So
Yeah, and it's
yeah,
definitely connected to the Pleiades. I was talking to a lady that's developed a system that's been channeled through Pythagoras as an evolution in
okay,
numerology called cosmic numerology with a K. And
hmm
she was amazing because she went through the energetic signatures of the numbers and how they aligned with the different constellations and galaxies. And of course, seven, you know, is connected with the Pleiades. And actually, in the color mirrors system, bottle number seven is called Neptune, and it's this beautiful turquoise color. And I often
it's
find
amazing.
that the color turquoise is very intimately intertwined with the Pleiades, and a lot of the imagery that you
Yeah,
see of the Pleiadians are always wearing turquoise and stuff. So
yeah,
when I
that was
developed my, sorry,
definitely my experience. That was my experience. They were all these blue beings that were
yeah.
were, were amazing. Yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah.
could you elaborate a little bit more about what happened? How did they present themselves to you? Was it in a physical way, or was it more of a psychosomatic kind of way?
With more of a psychosomatic sort of semi-dream experience. So I was kind of seeing things that you know maybe other people, if they're in the room, wouldn't have seen. Like that's okay. Um, but it was like I was surrounded in a circle of these beings that were just there was no words, but there was just an outpouring of telepathic love and support. And personally, I was going through a lot of change in what I wanted to do with my career, and I just had some really traumatic experiences with a loved one passing and a bunch of things. And just in that place of, do I give up? Just that uh, utter chaos in my field, a lot of distortion, and yeah, no direction. So the harmonic of their surrounding me and including me as what felt like family, um, and love and support just made me feel like it's actually all going to work out. It's all going to be okay. And a number of my children have had encounters with star beings from the Pleiades and from Sirius and um, yeah, different places. So it's definitely something that's it's been around me as well. So
Yeah, it's beautiful. And it's interesting how many of the people that I've been speaking to recently, like Christine Day and Pier and
oh
Cullen
yeah,
Olaine, that have these big connections, even Christine Popwell, sorry, Cynthia Popwell. there's a very deep connection, I think, with the Pleiades and specifically more so than some of the other galactic races. For me, it's it's Andromeda, that I have
Mhm.
this deep resonance with. But the beings that have presented themselves to me, I've only ever had two visitations. Once when I was 16, and once when I was in Egypt, actually in Sharm el
Oh
Sheikh on
yeah.
holiday when I was 35. And the beings that came to see me weren't loving. They were
Uh,
really scary. Or maybe it was just the way I interpreted it at the time. But no, I think I'd much prefer to have the sort of thing that you had. It sounds amazing. So maybe I'll rewrite my soul contract, and see
yeah.
if I
Well,
can
sometimes
cosmic order that.
we have those experiences for a reason as well, and I've had some more of the scary type experiences, and a lot of that has been they're working with clients where things have come up for them, and um, so learning to just cope with and deal with energy and manage your own field and call in help when you need it, protection and yeah, and support is really helpful. And just yeah, having authority and also discernment over what are you open to and what connections are there. And some of it's like karmic settling, all those things as well. And the world can be a mirror too. If we're all this unified consciousness field, the more you zoom out, it's all you, it's all the universal, the you inverse, everything that's not you is everything else, which is also you as a whole, if you go into non-duality. So it's like everything's a mirror. So we've got this disco ball experience of all these possibilities around us that are reflecting back to us things that um, we might need to look at in ourselves as well. So if
That's
there's
very
resonance
true.
there.
There was
Mm.
I mean, it was a huge healing journey that came up after all of that. So I think,
Mm.
yeah,
The
it was
trigger.
it was a trigger. It was an indicator that I needed to do some inner work for sure. Um, so in your view, then, how is human consciousness evolving in today's world, and what role does energy work play in this
Mhm.
evolution?
Yeah, the energy work that I practice is really around supporting change, so supporting the change process, because the rate of change is increasing. So those things I talked about before about we're encountering all this new chemistry and new ideas and things like that's driving a shift in values. Um, but it also means that we have to adapt and cope with with more things. Um, we're also getting this like great awakening that's going on where um, people are having a greater number of experiences like the one you just spoke of or others, and then having to integrate that and make sense of it. And um, I think we're very close to having more disclosure. And if we start learning that all of the stories that we've been told, maybe a lot of them weren't true, maybe um, some of the things that we've created in terms of our government systems or finance systems maybe won't hold up to the shifts that we're about to encounter. But I feel we're on the precipice of some very significant changes that will be disruptive, and as a result of that, we'll need to be really anchored in love and have the ability to cope with it. And so, creating those geometric structures that really align what's most important, those higher values, is going to be extra relevant and something we really need to kind of focus on. But this disruption that's likely to be upon us is kind of necessary as well. But how bad does it need to get before we change? So maybe on some level we might have had to have the Holocaust, so we learn not to do those things. If we're developing new technology, like we've even had nuclear bombs and things for a while now, but we have to learn to treat each other differently as a result. So what else is coming in terms of 0 point energy or other things that we could use as a tool for good or not? Even AI, is that a supportive mechanism or is that a destructive controlling one? A lot of that's up to us and the timeline that we're choosing, the path that we're choosing. And if we're in fear vibration, we'll create more of that, more anxiety. But if we can come back to ourselves and to our hearts and what's important, that's really the key to managing all of the things that we're going to be faced with. and already are.
Mm, I know. I know it's huge everywhere, all over social media, YouTube,
Mm.
everywhere. It's like the storm is coming in it, and that in itself generates fear, doesn't it? Which
Yeah,
is the opposite of what we really want.
yeah, and there's a difference between being in fear or being prepared. So, you can look at how reliant am I on external things for my survival. What can I do in myself? How do I manage situations that are disruptive? If my car breaks down, do I fall apart and go into, oh, why me? Or do I just go, oh, maybe there's a reason for this, and maybe I'll get a new car and it's an upgrade or something along those lines. How you deal with those smaller situations is really a fractal of how you might deal with something that's more challenging.
Mm.
And being prepared for whatever may come is always going to be helpful. And the key thing we can do is be in our heart frequency, because um, even if nothing happens, then it's still causing great benefit to us, so and those around us.
Yeah, never a true word spoken. And yeah, no, absolutely well done in reminding, everybody who's watching, to go back into the heart space because that's, it's just the biggest message I think that's coming in. And it reminds me actually of Drunvalo Melchizedek's teachings, from Living in the Heart, that
Mhm.
was had such a profound impact on me, that book when I read it. So, looking ahead, what upcoming projects or workshops are you really excited about, and how can everybody who's listening get involved? I mean, I know you've mentioned the cruise in Papua New Guinea, which sounds incredible.
Yeah, that's going to be super exciting. So that's in the middle of next year. You can look up Cosmic Consciousness Conference for that. Um, on a more local personal level, I'm running some monthly study groups with practitioners that are interested in the work, and that's been really rewarding because I love the in-person training. I've been doing some weekend workshops and those kinds of things that I love. I'm also taking that online now because to support the greater mission is really to uh, be able to provide access to the work for more people, which means it's necessary to be online. So I'm taking the work from the weekend workshops and creating a larger, I'm calling it the Codex of Light, which is the training programs for light workers that just give you a structure, give you a recipe, and we'll take people through a range of experiences and education and collaboration. So we're looking at really working together to create a greater work. And that's all going to be done through Lightwork Academy. So I've got my courses will be coming out. I'm dripping them out already, so I've got some free stuff on there. I'll be really focused on the Antahkarana development course as kind of being the key one because that's what I feel is most important. But because, like I said, it contains uh, the building blocks of the other patterns that I'll cover them as part of that process. So there'll be modules that might not seem linear, but there'll be a complete course that will be a standalone modality. Like within sort of 6 to 12 months, we'll have it out as you can just do this with no prior training. But really, it is for at the moment people that are already doing some kind of healing work or inner work. It doesn't have to be to work with other people. It can just be for personal spiritual development. Yeah.
That's wonderful. So, is that going to be available on platforms like Udemy, or is it going to be hosted on a like Kajabi or something like that, your own
Yeah,
online learning portal?
yeah. So I'm going to start with the learning management system of some kind on lightwork.academy. At the moment, I'm just doing a basic WordPress hosting, and we'll send out videos and PDFs and things like that. But as there's need to really bring in that more community focused aspect, we'll look for a platform that's the right fit to have the community focus too, so we can collaborate and ask questions. That's some of the purpose that I'm doing it for is I'm trying to find what people want to know and where the gaps are and what the interests are. And questions always help me as a teacher. I get a lot out of teaching because I learn so much and I love to learn. So when people ask me questions, I have to come up with some answers. So that's yeah, an amazing gift.
Yeah, and actually anybody who's watching this podcast today, if you've got any questions or any ideas or of what you would like to learn, then maybe leave those comments in the chat underneath
That would
the
be wonderful.
video. Yeah, it'd be really
That'd be really
useful and
helpful.
helpful for market research, I guess, for you and everything as well,
Yeah,
wouldn't
and
it?
to let me know how to be of most service myself, and yeah, where the help's needed. Yeah,
Now, I've got one last question for you before we sort of sign off today. And I was curious to find out because obviously when you started out today explaining your own personal story and you mentioned that your dad, was a GP in a
hmm
traditional sense and stuff like that. How how is everybody within the family dynamic, sort of taking the work that you do? Because to me, I would be like really proud if you were my son and be like, get him, he's taken medicine to the next level. But, for some families, they can be a bit like, oh my God, what's he doing? He's doing Satan's work. I mean, did you get a good response from your own family?
yeah. I mean, it's not always been particularly well received. It probably has looked very strange, and Dad especially was from a very secular background. He didn't believe in an afterlife and any of those things. I guess he witnessed a bunch of people being born and leave the world. So even in those things, there's a spiritual component from my perspective. But for him, it was kind of business as usual. So I guess the work that I was doing always has looked strange for him. So my interests and even meditation, why would you bother doing that? What a waste of time. So that was his worldview, and that's fine. I totally understand that and why he had that. Um, Mum's side of the family, little bit different, a little bit more open, but still, what am I doing? Maybe they don't understand it, or it's difficult to explain sometimes. But that's fine because I'm learning from that as well, and learning to, in the beginning when I first started teaching, I was trying to justify everything with science. I went back and did my graduate diploma in psychology, so I'd have the psychology tools for studying things because coming from that evidence-based medicine background, if you look at the way the work that I'm doing influences people and changes their lives, it's through an internal shift, which you can only really measure through those like psychological assessment type tools that measure scientifically someone's inner experience through like qualitative type measures. And making them numerical by having them rate on a scale of 1 to 5 or whatever. So I went back to do all those um, studies and looked at statistics and all of those, and kind of realized I've been wasting my time a little bit and should just get on with the core mission, which is sharing a resonance more than anything else.
I love
Yeah,
that.
and yeah, just being in the heart.
Yeah, good for you. Good for you. It's great. It's very refreshing to see and following your own path. And, you are doing some incredible work. You really are. It's fantastic and very inspiring to talk to you today. So thank you very much for sharing your profound insights with all of us today. And I
Yeah,
really feel like your integrative approach to healing and your consciousness expansion offers a beacon of light for everybody on their spiritual journey. So, for people that are watching that are eager to delve deeper into Stephen's work, then his website is stephenboothAcupuncture.com.au, right, Stephen?
yeah, and for the training, it's lightwork.academy.
Okay, brilliant. I'll put both of those links in the
Thank
description
you.
so people can easily access all of your information and material. And yeah, and that's the same, if you want to find more information about his private sessions, workshops, the Seven Stars Lightworker Training Academy, etc., etc., etc. So stay tuned then for more episodes. Please make sure you leave a comment on the video as well if you've enjoyed today's episode and like and subscribe, the usual stuff. We really genuinely appreciate that because it helps this channel to grow. And yeah, we'll continue exploring the infinite facets of consciousness and healing in the next episode. Once again, bye for now.